Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious. And yep, we're going to outer space today and talk about the unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAPs, that the U.S. Congress had their second hearing. Been a little over a year since that first hearing drew a lot of attention, and many of you may have watched it. If not, go to YouTube and put in their Congressional UAP meeting and you will hear some stuff that just frankly will blow your mind. I couldn't believe some of the things I was saying, what some of these experts in the military and other establishments are saying about the need to let the public know what's going on with unidentified aerial phenomena. Of course, UFOs is how we know them. Marty is in Long Island and doing this remotely, and we're doing it together here. And you might be able to hear Marty on my phone. Hi, Marty.
Hey Mark, how you doing?
Good. I'll bet Dave Stange can hear you. I'm trying to pull us up live here on my um, smart tablet so I can get comments for everybody, and we would love to hear your comments about these UAPs. Uh, I don't see it popping in there yet live, but hopefully it will. Marty, are you seeing any comments from anybody yet?
Yeah, we got from Gary Jarrell. Just
Okay.
saying hi everyone, and Dave Stange, same thing. Hello everybody.
All right, so let me see why my little device. There we are. Finally, it popped up live there. And bingo, I can see Dean Babcock joined us too. So if you watch this, please help me comment on this. I made a bunch of notes as I was watching it. I actually went to this couple of news sources, did not have any information posted yet, though that it started about noon and ended after 2 o'clock. They had some real experts there that said some things that I think they wish they could say a lot more about it. But boy, the congressional leaders seem to all be wanting to know more about it. The bottom line is, why are we spending tax money on uh, some investigative programs if these things don't exist? And that's what our congressmen and women we want them to do is keep track of the money being spent. But there's some really head turning and amazing things that were said that I'll recap a little bit. And we'll also, Marty, of course, I'm going to try to get our friend Ken Verderami on, who was on over a year ago. Ken was an Air Force colonel. He tried to be an astronaut 6 times and didn't make it, but he definitely has seen an alien body as far as I'm concerned. I know Ken very well. We've spent a few hours of our lives under looking at the stars, and there is something going on, and that is the main theme of all the congressional leaders that question five individuals today. Maybe there was just four. There's something going on, and it is actually threatening the airspace of our military and also doing surveillance of our research and development installations across America. So we'll get to that here. So tease you enough to stay curious with us. Glad you're joining us today. You know, our museum for over 20 years has been preserving the birth of America's space age right here in Brevard County where it all started. And we're going to talk about a recap of the Gemini program that the last mission was going on in 1966. And that being 58 years ago. Gemini 12 with two surviving astronauts, Jim Lovell's 96 and Buzz Aldrin 94. And our good friend Steve Jochum, I asked him to help me put a little recap together of Gemini. And Steve, you did an excellent job. And I'm going to share some of the points that we should all remember about a program that was so important to learning what we needed to do to go to the moon in 1965 and 66. So glad you're with us today. I'm glad that Marty can be in a cyber world with us. Let me put my spectacles on. Thank you, Marty. That was a picture you took. You say, Marty says uh, he did a 3.5 mile walk in 39-degree weather, 48% humidity, and sunny. There's 8 turkeys in this picture, he says. All right. Can you find all 8 turkeys? How how New England autumn is that? And he's in Long Island. What town you in, Marty?
Calverton.
Calverton. Okay, Calverton. And up there doing a lot of good things with his family up there. Uh, 8 deer in this picture, huh? He said he saw 12 deer, 100 turkeys, 2 flocks of geese, and a kitty cat. Okay, during your 3.5 mile walk today. Oh, that makes me hungry, Marty. Deer, I love venison. I love turkey. Yummy. All right. Cliff Watson says hi and good morning to you guys. Doug Forrest is there. Cliff, he's obviously in Australia. He could not get the show yesterday right away. We had two wonderful recruiters from the Space Force Air Force with us that we'll give a shout out to here in just a second. There's another picture, Marty, getting the deer there. That's a beautiful little tree there with the reddish hue to it there. Very nicely landscaped place up there at your brother's. So keep them coming, Marty. We enjoyed sharing with everybody the the sights of fall in Michigan and New England. Thank you all for sending in your pictures. I do miss that here at our Space Coast because palm trees don't change their color. But every time I'm driving into work, I turn on Gus Grissom Boulevard and then turn on Columbia Avenue, and I see the palm trees and then the big vehicle assembly building across the river, and I just say, how in the heck did this happen to little old me? But sure glad it did. So there's Steve Jochum's on there, and all his friends at the ASM say hello to you. And you did an excellent job on a recap here. I can't wait to share with everybody, including Mitch Rothman. He'll be enjoying at his Man Space Facebook page all that we got to talk about Gemini today. We've got an auction coming up Saturday, November 23rd. Gift giving time. Make that space lover smile. Bid Again Auctions and Chuck Jeffrey are the auctioneers. There's 400 lots. That is a awesome auction. I can't wait to start telling you about it on Friday. Thursday, we will have a program on Apollo 12 going to the moon. And we've got that. We'll do a reprise of what we did last year to make it easy on Marty and me. I have a Museums of Brevard meeting at 1:30. 20 beautiful museums in the mob, all legacy museums like we have here at the American Space Museum. And I'll be coming and driving my car, hopefully hitting all the green lights, and then sitting here quickly to do a show on Apollo 12 when we double down on President Kennedy's pledge to go to the moon before the end of the decade. We did in July 1969 and November 69. Well, in this auction, Bob Seek, the famous launch director and great friend of our museum and friend of mine, he has many items that he's donated. And many of the items, he's not making any money off of it. He wants to make that clear. He's donating, as is Chuck Jeffrey in his auction, 100% of the proceeds to the Challenger Foundation. So thank you, Bob Seek, architect of the shuttle program as a manager, and then launched a record 57 shuttles, I believe. Space worker Bob Giffen, who we miss. He did historically hung off the side of the Saturn V rocket to do an insulation repair job. We have the documentation of that, photos, his Guinness Book of World Record. We miss you too. We miss you, Bob Giffen, but his family wanted to share these items and others of Bob's in this auction. Dozens of astronaut autographs, many space flown items, and rare surface photos from the Apollo missions, including lots of 4 or 5 proof sheets there, Tommy Usiak, proof sheets of the film that they took pictures of on the moon to figure out what ones they were going to print to everybody. So this is an important fundraising time for our museum. That's why it is a charity auction. You pay $100 for an item, you'll be charged $120, as that extra $20 will go to the museum. And thank you for your support. It gets kind of pricey when you have a $1,000 item and it's a $200 donation to our museum. But y'all know going in that that's the way it works, and we need the money to do so many things here that we want to under the new leadership of myself as museum director and Gabriel Rothblatt as the executive director of our foundation. And we'll have Gabriel come on next week and talk a little bit about how things are going the way he's planning them. We want to thank Jacob Solway and Patrick Eglinton for their wonderful conversation yesterday. Two recruiters, each about 12 to 15 years in the Air Force. They are recruiting for the Space Force, which is a section of the Air Force, much like the Marines are a section of the Navy. And but we just had a great time with them, learning about them. I was kind of envious about them, Marty, because they're just they're over halfway through their 20 years of eligibility where they could retire after 20 years service. And I asked them what would keep them in longer, and two great little young men that makes you proud, Marty, that men and women like this are in our armed services and so serious and dedicated about what they do. So go back and check that out. Again, Chuck will take your honest appraisal over if you email him at chuck@americanspacemuseum.org. Maybe you've got a Neil Armstrong autograph or a Jim Lovell and Buzz Aldrin autograph on their GT-12 mission, want to know if they're real or not. You can usually kind of tell if they're not real by photographs, and then there might be some nuances that you need to see up close to prove that they are. But Chuck, always happy to talk to you about your collection, and if you're local, either meet him here at the museum on a weekend, or sometimes he'll go to your house to appraise your space collectibles, and they go to good homes. So that's a part of our auctions that we like, is a lot of people like Tom Celentano and have bought a lot of good things at a good price. Okay, let's get to the breaking news of the day. And more than a year's passed since elected leaders in Congress had a hard look at the mystifying objects that are outmaneuvering our military planes and even submarines, and claims of shadowy government programs to study alien spaceships come out. These programs were talked about. A couple of them I didn't get a chance to look up was the I wanted to look this up and got the Immaculate Constellation, and is supposedly a program looking into UFOs, or now called unidentified aerial phenomenon. And the main thrust of this meeting today was everything is over-classified. It is too top secret. The redacted, in other words, black magic marker wiping out important information that they don't want America to see. It's still there, and other leaders today wanted this government cover-up to be opened up, and let's talk about that. If you remember that, there was a long, the unidentified anomalous phenomenon, they call it anomalous, I'm calling it aerial, captivated the public for a few weeks, but then we haven't heard anything about it. What about these unchecked, unidentified objects in our airspace that are following our spacecraft and do things that we can't do with our spacecraft? And visiting that, great backdrop there. NASA and UAPs is now serious business, and I think this second open congressional hearing is going to have a lot of impact, because President-elect Trump has said that he wants to let the American public know about some of the conspiracies we're curious about, like the files of the John F. Kennedy murder, when our president was murdered in 1963. My gosh, the 50 years they said they were going to release all of the data about it. 50 years, okay. Well, and we're now pushing the 62-year mark here, and nobody has there's still a lot of unknowns there. Same way with UFOs, okay? Marty's question of the day is going to center around this. What Gemini mission reported a bogey in their official transcript? We'll let you answer this once a week. Steve Jochum's our Ken Jennings of Jeopardy, so to speak, and I know he doesn't look these things up on Wikipedia or Google them, but you can either answer this or not. Maybe hold out for a better question. Here it is Wednesday, though. What Gemini mission did officially report a bogey in their official transcript? And this is something that I think is pretty well known if you dig into the space trivia stuff. So let's see how that comes out. And Cliff says just hold it up to the light and see what's blacked out by the magic marker. Well, we could on the original things, but not when they scan it and post it up there. The 2022 annual report from the Office of the Director of the National Intelligence, this UAP phenomenon, has been underneath the Department of Defense, particularly the National Intelligence side, not the Air Force, not the Navy, all right? Though a lot of Navy and Air Force personnel have seen things that they can't explain, interfering actually with their maneuvers and drills that they're doing. So they just kind of dropped it, all right? And I didn't have any pictures, but UFOs, Unidentified Flying Objects, in 1966, cover by Paul Calley, our wonderful friend Chris Calley's father. This was his interpretation for a Post magazine. There was Life magazine, the Post magazine, oversized, beautiful photojournalism photos back in the 60s. That's become unidentified anomalous phenomenon. I keep saying aerial. Well, both kind of make sense. This is a 2023 photograph that was highly talked about. The Tic Tac also is another one that they saw this object exceeding any kind of human vehicle by going fabulously fast, thousands of miles an hour, then stopping, then turning and banking, doing things that would throw 1,000 G's on a human being and crush them, where a human being can only tolerate your lucky 9 to 10 G's without getting too messed up, though a few ballistic reentries of Soyuz spacecraft have done quicker than that. But the guy that we really like and respect is Ken Verderami. He has done several programs with us. Google that on our YouTube channel or our Facebook channel. Colonel in the Air Force, yes, he worked at Area 51. He trained astronauts after trying to be an astronaut 6 times and just wasn't selected. He said there was always that one person, Marty, that was, he didn't think, liked him. Jay Honeycutt, who was on that astronaut select committee, basically said, when you come before our committee, you were qualified to be an astronaut. We were just kind of nitpicking to find out, what would make them upset. Would they work well with others? Those were the kind of things that they tried to do to unravel you a little bit. I can't imagine them doing that to Ken. All right, he actually had a hand in a space plane that became the X-37B, and he frankly says things like he knows that these things exist and they are not from China, they're not from Russia, they're not from America. So where are they from? They are from extraterrestrial beings. Now, they could be beings that were on the Earth 100,000 years ago, and it perpetuated that because, my gosh, look at the pyramids, 5,000 years old, and they're crumbling. We just don't know who built them. Why couldn't there be civilizations come and gone just like the Romans did 2,000 years ago? So, Ken, we'll get you on again, buddy. He's part of our the Brevard Astronomical Society, and I'll be calling him up tonight to see when he can come on and talk about this latest. But I know what Ken's going to say probably is He felt like the last time several panel members had made up their minds about things, um, and a lot of people want to follow the scientific method to explain and believe nothing more is new or novel out there in natural phenomenon, which there certainly is. This is the great unknown of the universe. We think we know stuff, but what we know when we someday we'll find out is probably just a smidgen of what we know is out there. What do we need to do? We need to outline an approach using appropriate methods and sensors to capture data that can be analyzed as to determine what physical phenomenon is occurring. Now you've got sonar that they're going to talk that talked about today. With there's some conversation about UFOs following submarines and going easily from the ocean to the air, back to the air to the ocean with no splashing, none of these things that you would. And how could something do that? Ken thinks that we should form a team trained in the ability to discover the truth from uncooperative targets. In other words, forensic scientists, criminal detectives, propulsion engineers, and so forth. Aerospace engineers be involved like a CSI team to analyze things and come up with answers. And that is one of the things that was brought out is, though everybody agrees something's going on, they believe that to reveal the answers would be an embarrassment to the Pentagon. The Pentagon, these people said today, definitely have an attitude of wanting to know what they're going to talk about and not talk about things that they don't know about. That's the military way. Keep your mouth shut until we know exactly what it is and say no more. And one of these gentlemen named Elizondo, he was the one that I think really engages everybody because he had a NASA career, he had a military career. He's been on some of these committees that he kept telling the congressmen and women, I can't answer that in a public forum, but I can talk to you behind closed doors. All right. And a lot of these men that testified, there's all men today, said the same thing. I can't discuss that in this public forum, but I can talk to you behind closed doors personally about it. Now, all these men were sworn in with their hands raised that they were going to tell the truth. Here are some, and this Elizondo, he said this startling thing. I can't answer all your questions, but the ultimate answer will surprise us all. He knows something. UAPs have almost shut down military exercises. In fact, several of the people testifying said that the UAPs are very bold and not hiding from these military exercises. They wanted, the congressmen and men wanted to know, how do you define non-human biologics? That was admitted that we do have in storage biologics that are not human. Okay, non-human biologics means bodies. We have creatures somewhere, and many of them said that we've come to understand from what they know that there's a more diverse, higher order of intelligence in the universe than we could ever imagine. All right, what is an intelligent what is alien intelligence? How do they define that? And that was defined as the ability to react to a stimulus that requires individual thought process. And this one gentleman pointed out that it could be artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can be real. All right. And when this Elizondo said that I can't give you the answers, but the ultimate answer will surprise us all. To me, he was hinting at that these are artificial intelligence beings that have cognitive reasoning and so forth. It's way out there. Contractors were talked about. How do you deal with contractors that know a lot about UAPs? And specifically, Lockheed Martin was mentioned a lot as knowing a lot about UAPs. But the problem with reporting them is the enormous stigma to reporting unidentified phenomenon. Okay. And Ken Verderami said there's 3 golden rules of the debunkers. Don't bother me with the facts. My mind's made up. Number 2, what the public doesn't know, I'm not going to tell them. And 3, if you can't attack the data, attack the messenger. The data is very strong that something weird is going on. Here is some of the UFOs over the last 5-6 decades that have been described. And some of these are very solid evidence of things. There's one in 1987. And we're not going to go over any of the UFO incidences that can't be explained, but let's talk a little bit more about what was said today or what was not said. What is the purpose of the federal government overclassifying UAPs and prohibiting public information? That was one of the questions one of the congressmen have. If they're prohibiting public information on this, then why are we spending money on it? Okay, and definitely it was saying that the government is covering up something. Information is being blocked by government and contractors. In a private setting, a congressperson can be shown evidence of these UAPs. They were asked, how about the photographs of them that we have? And several of the gentlemen said that we have photographs of these objects in tremendous detail, not the fuzzy things you've seen. And Ken Verderami told us that on his Stay Curious episodes, that he has seen these photographs. We can see the side of these things, like a 3-foot section of them, not these little fuzzy images. They fuzz them out on purpose, all right? Hundreds, if not thousands of images have been taken with high-resolution cameras, lenses, and so forth that show the details. And what blows their mind is they don't see any ports for exhaust. They don't see any door openings. They're usually just plain material, and they don't know what that material is made of. These congressmen also wanted to know, who do we ask next? If you guys can't tell us what, who do we go to find the answers as congressmen? We are congressional leaders representing the American populace. Who do we ask for the right questions? Who do we ask our questions to get the right answer when the Pentagon's not answering them? The Department of Defense isn't answering them. Well, we have government records since the 1950s, and some of these have been in committees. A committee named Arrow was mentioned. When you say a committee's out there, that immediately means taxpayer money is being spent on these committee members to travel, to eat, for lodging, all right, and then all the materials that are printed up for them to look at this. And again, several of the congressmen and women come back to, why are we spending taxpayer money on something that doesn't exist if the government ain't telling us what to do? We can handle it, is what the attitude is. We need to know. A lot of this is psychological. The Pentagon is solution-oriented. They don't want to give information out to the public on things that they don't have a solution for. And after decades of hiding it, it's painful to admit that, hey, we've been keeping your head buried in the sand. All right, so now finally in 2024, 25, we're digging the sand up, pulling your head out and saying, bingo, look at this. It is real. Over and over, they talked about non-human intelligence. If we don't know it, we need to know it. There were several instances pointed out. In 2015 was one where UAPs threatened pilots and the security of the military personnel. It was even brought up that there has been in the biologics and hardware that has been harvested or discovered from UAPs that military people have been injured and are on disability payment for the injuries suffered getting alien biologics, all right? So if you can admit that, but that they're being treated for something from some top secret thing that happened involving alien biologics. Why can't you release the biologics that was done there? These are things that were asked today. Uh, and another thing that was really brought out was that civilian pilots report dozens of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, maybe a month, maybe hundreds of reports a year. The pilots are flying our friendly skies. They see a lot that's going on. They are ridiculed for speaking their mind. Again, the stigma of reporting UAPs is still like you're a crackpot if you don't believe it on there. Another thing brought up was the ocean has only been explored. One congressperson said 5% of the ocean has been mapped, the ocean floor. Could UAPs have bases on the ocean floor? And these gentlemen said, well, we do see a lot of them in the ocean. Several of them were coming at a submarine. One instance was at the speed of a torpedo. They thought that it could be a Russian torpedo headed to their own submarine, and then it stopped, did a U-turn, and started following the submarine. Okay, nothing we have on Earth can do that. Go that fast, stop that fast underwater. But again, sonar, radar, there's a lot of non-visual information about this. And quite frankly, it blows your mind. Again, President-elect Trump is wanting greater conspiracy on UAPs, the JFK file, and other things that have bothered Americans. And the important thing is, we need to bolster airspace security, was the plea from these these people testifying that were in the military. The crash retrievals were acknowledged. Yes, we have retrieved things from crashes, and people are being paid for illnesses from these crashes. Communication. How do we communicate with these non-life forms? One of the Congress people asked. Well, and that led to the evasive kind of, I have to kill you to tell you answer. But yes, they said there is a nonverbal way of communication that relates to intelligence, like controlling U.S. airspace, not hiding, interfering with nuclear readiness. They are making it clear that they're there, is what was said by these people. These UAPs have gotten bolder in the last decade and are part of the observing the drills going on, and whether it be in the Navy drills or Air Force drills or whatever. And they also said we do have an exchange of data with China and other countries and international partners, and our allies and international partners do exchange UAP information, because it's just not us that they're following. All countries report these things. But I haven't heard any other country leaders, go out on a limb and say, I have seen this. Here's my sketch of it. We couldn't take pictures of it. So, quite heady stuff, really. It is, and they're saying that these people testifying that it takes courage to testify, and they gave NASA Administrator Bill Nelson a lot of compliments, because he is the one that instigated a year and a half ago to have Congress do hearings on this sort of thing. So, I think if all of us would become president, you would say, hey, I want to see the file on Area 51 and the Roswell incident, and now I want to see the JFK files, okay, and so forth. But We've got somebody saying strange and scary New England. Yes, it's the point right now where they don't even have to say, yes, they exist. We already know they do, and the government admits it constantly without actually saying it. And that's true. This is what they were saying. These guys are admitting that something alien, not of this world, or if it was of this world, it was 100 centuries ago. And whatever those civilization was, is afraid maybe of us because we're so primitive. It was really emphasized that the research and development areas like Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Edwards Air Force Base, and other think tanks around the country doing research are constantly have unidentified anomalous phenomenon reported. So I will be seeing what the newspapers say. Newspapers, listen to me, Marty. Uh, I can't afford a $3.50 daily newspaper, though I got at one point had uh, newsprint blood in my veins as an Associated Press photographer. But you know, when military officers spend hours providing compelling testimony about our unchecked U.S. airspace, all right, and about the efforts of the government to capture and study these uh, anomalous vehicles, it should be known to the public that if it's a threat to our military, it's a threat to us, and we need to know. And though saying that aliens exist will be a whole reset on maybe humanity and if, from the religions of the world to the thinking that we are not alone. And when you know so much about the universe as an astronomer, like I do, you know we're not alone. Why would we be the only creatures in this immense, vast ocean of stars and planets and so forth? And us be the best there is? Hardly think so. So, well, thank you all for listening to my little recap of today's UFO hearing. Again, at 3:30, I didn't see any stories up there about it, uh, and no one had reported anything yet. So we'll see how it's digested by the news media and the pundits on your favorite news channels and sources for news there. So we'll keep you up with that, and we'll be trying to get our buddy Ken Verderami on here as soon as we can to talk about this second American congressional hearing on the phenomenon of unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So, well, just a little breaking news to recap there. We thought it was interesting. Thank you, Carlton Bailey, that we had two launches on November 11th, 4 hours apart by SpaceX. And there's CB's photos of them. And back in 1997, the Delta launch team was bragging about they had two Delta launches 5 days apart, which was a record. But also, one of those launches was at Vandenberg in California with the Iridium satellite that was a communication satellite for a decade or so at the beginning of this century. And the other one was in Cape Canaveral. So to have two launches, 4 hours apart at one, of course, Kennedy Space Center on pad 39A, and the other one, Starlink off pad 40 on Cape Canaveral. CB captured both of them there. We thought we'd share that with you. But that was not the record. Oh, no. The record was set in 1966 by Gemini 12, which had an Atlas Agena target vehicle go up at 2:07 p.m. And then an hour 39 minutes later was the Gemini 12 crew of Jim Lovell and Buzz Aldrin. And like I said, Lovell's 96, Aldrin 94. Saw a picture from Caroline Shoemaker of the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation at a luncheon yesterday where she had just been with Jim Lovell. He's in a beautiful assisted living facility outside of his home in the town of Chicago. His daughter was there with him. He looked so happy and just looked like Jim Lovell, like you always see him, sitting in a wheelchair. You get that old, you're having a hard time. Gravity's really beat you down for 96 years. Of course, he had a little period of weightlessness there that we're going to talk about here. So that is pretty cool. Juxtaposition of history on November 11th from 1966 to 2024. Well, there is the mission of Jim and Buzz standing up in the gull wings of the Gemini spacecraft, holding some of the Hasselblad camera gear that they were going to use in space. There's a shot that was taken of Buzz in there. We'll talk about Buzz's EVAs there. This was the first 3 successful EVAs on GT12. They landed November 15th, by the way, which will be Friday. First time that neutral buoyancy underwater training was used to rehearse EVAs before the flight. And because of a failure of a computer on board, um, Buzz Aldrin used a sextant and a slide rule to do a rendezvous navigation with the Agena rocket, and they conducted the second tethered operation between Gemini and Agena there. They actually had a tether attached to it, tried to recreate some artificial gravity, and that's the last time I think that we've ever tried to do that. And that was a big plan, was to create artificial gravity. You see the Agena rocket right there behind Buzz with the radar pole on it there. So, Steve Jochum, thank you for putting together a nice little data about the Gemini space program. The 2-man Gemini program was a follow-on to the 1-man trailblazing flights of Project Mercury. Gemini was to be used to prove and perfect the many new spaceflight techniques and procedures that would be required in a mission to the moon. These included space navigation, orbital plane changing from one lane to the next, so to speak, rendezvous and docking, long duration space flight. We needed at least 7 days to go to the moon and back, 3 days there, 3 days back, a day there. So several flights pioneered that. Extravehicular activity and ability to do constructive work in weightlessness in the vacuum of space. Buzz Aldrin actually had a few tools that he tried out in there. Well, here's a little slide that I put together showing all the crews from the upper left-hand corner there of GT3 and going all around again to the left-hand side of Gemini 12. They did use the Roman numerals. Traditionally, the 2 Roman numeral for the Gemini twins of mythology, Romulus and Remus, supposedly founded Rome, and it is pronounced Gemini, not Gemini. Gemini is the constellation. NASA said we're pronouncing this Gemini like Gemini cricket. All right, so take note of that. And Gemini cricket, somebody says, Marty. Yeah, go watch Pinocchio, the classic Walt Disney animated film. All right, significant moment. Let's get the recap here that Steve Jochum's put together. The first flight of Gemini Titan was unmanned April 8th, 1984, GT1, and it orbited the Earth. 10 manned missions, okay? The Gemini launch vehicle, the Titan II, was the human-rated version of the Titan II ICBM. It was called the GLV, I mean. The contractor was Martin Marietta. 7 docking targeted flights, all right, with the Atlas booster and Agena upper stage was a docking target. General Dynamics, the Convair division did that. We have our Cape Canaveral Gallery dedicated to the Atlas rocket and the General Dynamics equipment that they used at Pad 36. The first flight, of course, was GT3, March 23rd, 1965, and then every 6 weeks, it seemed, there was 2 astronauts going to space. So thrilling to be a teenager back in those days when it was just amazing. You couldn't get enough information. And the Twitter of the day, or X of the day, was AM radio. That was how you heard at the top or bottom of the hour the news that was going on. And I was listening to CKLW out of Windsor, Ontario, and they had news at every 20 minutes. So 3 times an hour you could get news on there. And then listen to the greatest rock and roll and greatest music of all time. You still hear these 50-year-old songs, Marty, being used as commercials on TV. Heard one just the other day. All right. The number of Mercury astronauts to fly. How many Mercury astronauts are there that flew in the Project Gemini? Well, that'd be a good question for Marty's question. Gus Grissom and Gordon Cooper. Alan Shepard was originally supposed to command GT3 with Tom Stafford, and he ended up being grounded due to a imbalance in his ear called Meniere's disease. The number of Gemini astronauts to fly 2 missions. How many of these guys flew 2 missions? Okay, I was going to think 3, but the correct answer is 4. Pete Conrad on 5 and 10, Jim Lovell on 7 and 12, Tom Stafford on 6A and 9, and John Young on GT3 and 11. Of course, 6A is the A for the aborted mission that they had to reset because the Atlas Agena rocket blew up. And then, of course, 9, he was a backup to the tragedy of 2 astronauts that lost their lives. We'll talk about that in a minute. How many Gemini astronauts did spacewalks, EVAs, or whether they were successful or not? Okay. Oh, yeah. There, Man Space just said, Steve, we left out Wally Schirra. Okay. 3 astronauts, Gemini. That's why I love our people here. No embarrassment to Steve there, but I'm correcting that. Yep, 3. Mitch, you caught us on that. Wally. Absolutely. Wally, the only astronaut to fly all 3 moon spaceships, or so to speak, Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo. We got 4 astronauts who did flew 2 missions, all right? And then how many astronauts did EVAs? All right. That would be 5. Ed White, of course, the first one. Gene Cernan, that spacewalk from hell, he called it, on GT9, where he overheated and he lost so much weight that his actual spacesuit was full of sweat from about the middle of his calf down, and he had to live with that till they landed. Dick Gordon did 2 EVAs on Gemini 11, and then Mike Collins did 2 EVAs, counting the stand-up EVAs on GT10, and then Buzz did 3 EVAs on Gemini 3 on there. And none on 11? 11 would have been Dick Gordon and Pete Conrad. Yeah, he's got Dick Gordon on 11 there. Right, just out of sequence there. So, good stuff there, Steve Jochums. A couple other things Steve brought up as we look at the recap of what the spacecraft was like. The astronauts did not get back in that service module area. Very cramped in there. I've looked inside of many of these, like many of you have. They just look like a fighter jet pilot cockpit. Gus Grissom actually laid it out to where he wanted things conveniently, like the jet planes, like the F-86 that he flew in Korea. They called it the Gus Mobile for a while. And let's see here. We've got Steve come up with the first moments of this program, where you've got the first 2-man space flight by America was GT3. The first EVA, of course, GT4. There's that picture on the left is the late Ed White doing that. First rendezvous of a 2-man spacecraft, all right, would be Gemini 6 and Gemini 7 in December 1965. The first long duration flight was GT5, where Gordon Cooper and Pete Conrad were in space for 8 days, and it was the first use of fuel cells for electricity, and radar rendezvous was used for tracking docking targets. They actually had something that they released out of the service module that they zeroed in on with radar. That's significant. The GT5 fuel cells instead of big batteries up there, Marty. How we doing, Marty?
Doing good, Mark.
Okay. I keep talking to you. I want to make sure you're there to listen. Of course, there's the Gemini flight control in Houston. Let's see. Steve also come up with the first docking and rendezvous of an Agena target. That was Gemini 8, March 1966, with Neil Armstrong and David Scott, who didn't know it at the time that they would command important missions to the moon. And then, of course, they had an emergency on that crew, the first forced landing when an OMS thruster stuck, violently rolled the spacecraft, and uh, definitely Neil Armstrong's quick action saved the day. David Scott may have been blacked out for a few seconds during this horrible spinning around. And there's when the Gemini spacecraft landed, they have a green dye that they put out to show where they were at. And of course, the GT 6 and 7, that's one of them there in the famous picture there, where that we'll talk about here in a second. Um, the first backup crew to be called into flight, of course, was Gemini 9 with Tom Stafford and Gene Cernan replacing Elliot C. and Charles Bassett, who were killed as their T-38 crashed into the McDonnell aircraft plant in St. Louis in bad weather. And Tom and Gene, though they didn't see the actual crash, they knew what had happened and could see the smoke coming up and stuff like that. Um, had the Angry Alligator, a mission that was rescheduled due to the loss of the target vehicle, and that didn't work out too well. The first EVA emergency, of course, was Gene Cernan's on 9. It was terminated where his heart rate was so dangerously high, like 180 beats a minute, and the use of the manned maneuvering unit was scrapped. The first second docking with the Agena target. That was important. They chased it down and then they went and docked with it again. That would have been GT-10 with John Young and Mike Collins, with Young making his second trip to space after going up as a rookie on the first Gemini flight. And the first one-orbit rendezvous and docking, all right? One orbit. From launch to 90 minutes later, Conrad and Gordon chased down their Agena rocket, and that was important to save fuel and understand how we could do that quickly for an Apollo lift off the moon with the lunar module. So good stuff there. You know, one thing that I know about that's not on the list here is I believe one of these missions went from their original docking, to the Gemini 8 docking Agena up there in space. And that could be what you're talking about with 10 there, that they went from their Agena target to another one. But these were quite sophisticated missions for the day. When they docked, they wanted to make sure that they actually could lift the Agena rocket up to a higher altitude. Gemini, one of the Geminis, I think it was 10, set the high orbit of 830 miles. That was the eclipse by the private mission. Polaris Dawn went up to 880 miles above the Earth. All right, so so many pioneering things going on here, and we've got you all talking here and there. Steve Jochum is Mitch says that Gemini 4 is the first use of the Manned Spacecraft Center in Houston. And Steve says Gus was the Capcom. And hello, Mia, 2-year-old Mia. She wants to know if I have new glasses on. And I changed my glasses out there, little Mia. But old people like Grandpa need them to read sometimes. So thank you for asking there, honey. And always love it when little kids are watching, including my granddaughters, who, happy birthday. Macy is 1 year old today, and McKinley's 3 years old. So we love our grandkids. Got some conversation going here. Tom Celentano, his first memories of spaceflighter from Gemini. And yes, the Gemini 8 thruster component had malfunctioned. Thruster number 7 or something of the 8 thrusters. We think we have a component on that that had to have been in the cockpit and not on the trunk of that. But such a dramatic thing. And Gemini was as an important to all our space missions, says Nick Sedler, and it certainly was. It was not necessarily overlooked in the history of things, but everybody jumps to Gemini, over Gemini, and into the Apollo era there. These were my heroes. I followed these men meticulously, had to go to the library to read U.S. News and World Report or get newspapers or something like that, to find out all I could about them. And believe you me, the public didn't know some of the scary stuff. All right, it was sort of, there were some hair-raising events like Gemini 8, or I mean Gemini 9, with Gene Cernan there. And Tom Stafford, Gene's aborted EVA. We weren't really told how dangerously close he was to maybe blacking out, and if Tom couldn't get him back into that spacecraft, even if he died on the end of that tether, he'd have to cut him loose and come back alone. And that was a conversation that Deke Slayton had with Tom Stafford in the White Room as they were getting in there. So that's pretty well documented. So glad that we could recap Gemini, such an important mission. Thank you, Steve Jochums. I'll use your stuff in another way, maybe put it up on Facebook over the weekend there. Appreciate that, buddy. And I offer you any way that you could want to offer stats or a program or some slides, or put together 3 or 4 slides that you'd like for us to show on there. We'll do that, and we'll even have the capability to get you on live and talk about that, as we'll do that in the future. So, well, let's recap. Celentano says one of the advantages of being old is remembering those early missions. And you got that right. I remember, feeling old in my 60s and just wanted to make sure I could see Pluto from New Horizons. So I clicked that off. Yeah, Marty. Okay, I thought Marty was going to say something. Well, getting back to UFOs, there's my friend Bob Smith. I stargazed hundreds of hours with Bob up on the mountains of Tennessee, and still a good friend. They had the UFO Network, MUFON, advertised up there. The truth is out there. Remember that? Mutual UFO Network. Where are they today? As Congress is trying to peel back the layers of this very serious situation where we have unknown spacecraft that do things that we can't do with our even highest technology, shadowing our military operations and our technology installations here in America. I photographed a couple UFOs over Bays Mountain Park up in Tennessee. That's our beautiful 8-inch refractors under there. Yep, saw them 3 whizzing by and just luckily captured it. No one can explain to me what they are. And we can even go eat with an alien here at the Moon Hut. A couple of you have been there, but they have a cute motif there where you can serve up a breakfast and eat with some aliens there at the Moon Hut, a legendary place here on the Space Coast. So, well, Marty's trivia question. What Gemini mission reported a bogey in their official transcript? I don't see any takers, Marty. I mean, there's 10 missions. You could guess one of them, somebody. So we stumped them. All right. I see that they don't even want to admit that they believe in UFOs. Nobody out there. It is such a stigmatized thing to talk about. So polarizing. Maybe just as polarizing as when you start talking politics with somebody that doesn't agree with your politics, and you have to understand theirs to get along with them. But all right, Manspace says Gemini 5. Good guess there, but no, it is in the transcripts for Gemini 7. All right, and there's our Gemini 7 astronauts, Jim Lovell leading the way with Frank Borman in those funky kind of leisure suits, if you will, for a space suit with the soft helmets. They actually had a aircraft crash helmet on underneath this, because they're going to spend 14 days in space and get down to their skivvies floating around in that awful cramped in a Gemini spacecraft. In their transcript of their mission, the astronauts mention a bogey, which ufologists have claimed to be a reference to a UFO. That was a common word for something that not necessarily was a UFO, but something that trailing them. A bogey was an enemy aircraft about to approach them. Um, the astronaut who made the comments, Frank Borman, later confirmed that what he saw was not a UFO. And when he was offered to go on a television show, Unsolved Mysteries, to clarify, the producers told him, "Well, we don't want you on the program anymore." All right, they were fishing for something. During Gemini 4, Jim Divitt spotted an object he described as a white cylinder shape with a white pole sticking out of one corner. And they were pretty sure that that was Ed White was asleep at the time, and he took a couple pictures of it. And but they claim and believe it was man-made space debris, part of the Titan II second stage. And Neil Armstrong on Apollo 11 reported to have witnessed multiple UFOs, claiming he saw two blue, pale, glowing orbs. An explanation was that the sightings could have been attributed to jettisoned components. Of course, the UFO people jumped on it as it was a hoax. Uh, and Buzz Aldrin said that his words were taken out of context in a 2000 interview about that incident. Aldrin said what he observed, a light out the window that appeared alongside, saying the crew. Well, there's a lot of unknown stories about the Apollo astronauts that I have heard privately, several of them from Al Worden, who orbited and may have or may not have seen something following them. I think he took that to the grave in there. So, Tom Celentano, great way to end our show with this dramatic, iconic picture of the rendezvous of Gemini 6 and 7 in December 1965. Tom Celentano says that Wally Schirra reported seeing Santa Claus on their mission in December 1965 when he rendezvoused with his buddy up with the Apollo 7 guys. So hope everybody enjoyed that. Hope that you go back to your YouTube channel and look up today's congressional testimony. If you're going to go away with anything else like I did, you're going to go with something's up. Something is interfering with our military and sometimes even mocking the intelligence of our military by showing their prowess by being over there and the next second later being over there. I've even heard stories told that put into the vector where the jet was going was not put in a computer, but it was in the pilot's brain, and that a UFO appeared at that vector as if mind reading the pilot's brain. So heard a lot of things. One day maybe we'll be able to substantiate it. Maybe we can help it, but maybe we can handle it if we find out some point in the next 10, 15 years of this century that we are not alone. So thank you, Marty, for not leaving me alone here. We pulled it off again from Rhode Island to Cape Canaveral or Titusville, buddy. Say goodbye to everybody as we sign off here, my friend.
Hope everybody has a good evening.
All right.
Look out for those UFOs.
Well, I hope you have enough warm weather or cold weather clothes to get you through another week, as Marty will coming back next Tuesday. Is it, Marty?
Yes, Tuesday the 19th.
All right. Well, we'll be glad to see you. Everybody misses you here. We miss his smiling face, and I miss my so-called big brother keeping me in line here on the show. I've just gone hog wild, Marty. But John, John Graham is also gone for about 5 days, also on some family business. So it's amazing that we've learned it all this way. Thank you, Nick Sedler, for wonderful watching our show here. We appreciate everybody out there enjoying what we have to offer. Tomorrow is going to be wall-to-wall Apollo 12, okay? And if you don't think we didn't go to the moon, please don't watch. And if you say disparaging remarks, we will have ways to take care of you with little black men showing up at your door, because they're probably going to show up at mine tonight, Marty. So until next week, when we talk about doubling down on President Kennedy's pledge to go to the moon at the end of the 1960s decade with the fabulous mission of Apollo 12, I'm Mark Marquez saying I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.
That's a wrap, Mark.
All right. Damn, I went on for an hour. Is my voice off?
No, your voice was good.
I mean, I'm not live now. I hit the button.